They see the positives in everything. Even in a bad performance or a negative performance, they will take something positive out of that, okay, so they can go to the next training session. Right? If you're a negative person, then it weighs you down. Over time, negativity will weigh you down and affect your performance. Parents, do you understand that? Yeah, agree with that? So, you have to stay positive, even though the situation may be negative. Okay? Your children might be coming home after a bad performance, but please stay positive for them and keep them positive. Take a positive out of the game. Even if it's a golden duck, surely they do something in the field that becomes positive. Right? If you make a golden duck as a batsman, then sit and watch one of your mates make runs and take something out of that for them. Because it is a team sport. So try and remain as positive as you can. The hardest, the most difficult time to remain positive is when you have injury and are coming back from injury. Okay? I'm not sure, I don't know Patrick Cummins, but I assume he's a very positive person because he keeps coming back. He loves the game, obviously, and he wants to succeed in the game. But what's he had now? 4 lots of stress fractures? All right, and each time it's a minimum of 6 months, and it's a lot of hard work to come back. He's obviously staying positive. And whilst it mightn't seem much, but I think it's particularly important. I actually work at a school from 7 till 5, and I work with year 3s right through to year 12s, and I work with the elite athletes within that school group, and more often, this is very important. So your family support is particularly important. I see the better athletes that come through the system have wonderful family support. Right? Cricketing parents have to provide 6 hours of wonderful family support, usually on a Saturday and a Sunday. Unlike other sports that might be finished in 1 hour, you're having to take them to training a couple of times, but sit there on a Saturday and Sunday and often score or umpire or provide morning tea and afternoon teas. That family support is very important. Having said that, you've played, you've had your time, right, and the time now is for your child, right, to make their own way in their sport. So you should be positive, right, but allow the child themselves to actually be themselves and grow as an athlete, right, grow as a sportsman, rather than doing that sport simply because you want them to. Any questions about those? Anything you disagree with, parents? Guys?
I'll throw one at you, the overload, the physical overload.
Yeah.
What about mental overload? Probably not your area of expertise, I know that, but this time of year our guys have had a lot of cricket, a lot of them played second level cricket. I'm talking about a great team. Semi-final time, I'm trying to have them fresh and going.
Yeah. So, as an exercise physiologist, we call that tapering. It's easier for some particular sports like swimming and athletics, and where we would taper someone for a particular event or a particular carnival. As a club coach, you've got to assume, I think, that you're going to make finals. So you have a taper period in there regardless of whether you're going to make finals or not. And you probably have, in a complete season, 2 of those periods. Too difficult. How many games do you play?
A year.
And how long does the season go for?
6, 7 months. Yeah.
Plus 3 seasons. It ends up a 10-month season, basically. So having one taper period where you freshen off for like 2 weeks in 10 months is not enough. So I think you need to do it a couple of times during the season. You've got to pick your times, obviously, when you do it. But and for you guys, the overload. So are you playing any other sports apart from you're playing a winter sport on top of your cricket? So that's an overload. So when we talk about this overload, I was going to talk about the importance of keeping a diary. Okay. Parents probably fork out some money and buy a Fitbit or some form of system that's going to monitor load. Okay. on your child. It might be logging, manually logging how many sessions, how long the training session, what they're doing at school in terms of PDHPE or PE classes, just physical load. Right? And write it down and keep a log of that over a season. When I did my study with the 90 fast bowlers, every fast bowler had a log, and it wasn't just a log of their bowling commitments, it was full physical load, included their football commitments, their athletic commitments, their swimming commitments. So I could see how many hours a week they were actually spending on their feet to make sure they weren't overloading. In my profession, I have a little device, I should have bought it tonight, it's called a Clue, and it sits on your chest for 2 minutes, and it measures overload. So when I'm away managing a team, right, and we've played a match, the next morning I go around to each of those players and I put this device on their chest, and it tells me whether that player is sufficiently recovered from the match. Right? I did this with the Parramatta Eels 2 years ago. So every Monday I would go to the Eels and I would measure the 32 players, and then based on that score, Brad Arthur would set up his training sessions for the Wednesday, which was the main training session, and he would offload some players, for instance, because they hadn't recovered sufficiently, or if they had recovered sufficiently, then he wouldn't overload them, but they'd do their training, their normal training intensity. So during that year, it was the year Jared Hayne ended up, they had a blinder. He didn't play, so he would play State of Origin, and he didn't play any of the matches between State of Origin. Whereas Cameron Smith on a Friday night would go back and play for the Storm. And then I'm saying, well, why is Jared Hayne not playing for Parramatta during this time? The reason was, this device would show he hadn't recovered sufficiently. They'd play on a Wednesday, even if it was a Sunday match, he still hadn't recovered sufficiently. And every time in the past he'd gone back and played, he got a soft tissue injury and breaking down, and then couldn't play for Parramatta. So we now track, as a physiologist, we track recovery and load. It's very important. So we would say that the recovery during the season is actually more important than the training.
What's the best form of recovery? Sleep?
Yeah. So at your ages, so I think there's 3 things you should do. Okay? Rehydrate. It's a summer sport, and you need to get water back in your system. So rehydrate at the end of the day. Food, and we're going to talk about diet in a minute. You have to eat correctly, and you have to sleep properly. Right. I got sent a research article yesterday which said stretching after exercise is a complete waste of time. Now, we would think, the cool down and the stretch, right, is very important. Complete waste of time. Right? Does nothing for recovery. Smith, you'll know I'm completely against ice baths. Right? In fact, getting in a hot bath is far more important and far more beneficial than jumping in cold water. Right? But the 3 things I'm concerned about for you guys are rehydrate, make sure you're drunk enough. How do you know, boys, whether you're drunk enough? How can you tell?
You're right.
Yeah. And what colour should it be?
Yeah.
Should be clear. Okay, so the next morning when you wake up, if it's not clear, you need to keep drinking. Okay, so that's a sign. So if it's yellow, bright yellow, then you haven't been drinking enough after the match. Okay, you need to eat correctly, and we're going to go through that in a moment, and you need to sleep. So this Clue device, right, picks up whether you've slept long enough. A Fitbit will pick up sleeping patterns and whether you're sleeping well enough and recovering well enough. Okay. Anything else in there for recovery? What do you guys do after a match?
Straight in a warm bath.
Warm or?
Yeah, warm.
Yeah? Okay. Why? Is that just you or?
That's me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you like that instead of an ice bath?
Doesn't burn me when I get in the start. But I don't know, I've just, because I've come through sort of the programs and stuff as well, and we used to do half baths in there, and I never used to get anything out of it. And sort of I've done a little bit of research myself, and I find that's what works best for me. So.
Parents, why would warmth be better than cold?
Relaxes circulation.
One, it relaxes the muscle.
Doesn't
Right.
shock the muscle?
Yeah, what does ice do? It contracts and spasms the muscle. 2, circulation. So we're trying to increase circulation to flush out toxins after a match. Right? If you slow everything down by jumping in an ice bath, they're actually, as we said, slowing them down, and it pools in an area. It's pooling, blood pooling. So all the toxins are actually pooled in the area rather than being flushed away. Okay. So heat's better than, in that case, I advocate heat and hot baths rather than cold.
It's like having it's like having a big day at work. What's the first thing you do when you get back home? I want a hot bath. Just want to let yourself relax and just, dive away in the bath for 20 minutes. No one goes after a hard day work going, geez, I have a cold ice bath.
No. And mainly because the muscles are tense, they're tight, they're not necessarily in spasm, but to relax the muscle, you need warmth and hot. So if you don't have a bath, then it's a hot towel in a microwave, so it's lightly steaming, and then you apply that to the area that's tight or sore. It's a hot blanket, right, just generate warmth and heat, okay, much better. Why do people go into the ocean, into the cold ocean? Yep.
Salt?
Yeah, what does salt do? You're right, and it's a good answer. It's correct. It's not the cold. That's what I'm trying to say. They don't go into the ocean for the cold. Well, they think they do. But it's not the cold that does the benefit. It's actually the salt. What does the salt do? Okay, so you have 20,000 pores in the soles of your feet. The salt gets absorbed up through those pores, goes into your body, goes into the cell, and the salt actually flushes out all the toxins. So as it passes through the cells, it pushes the toxins out. Okay. That's what the salt water is doing. So going to the beach as a recovery is a good thing, not for the cold. Okay, it's actually just for the salt. So if you put salt into a hot bath, much better. So Epsom salts, pain away salts, something like that, you get the double whammy, double benefit. Okay, so good recovery.
What about things like, I've heard the Aussie cricket team will have a spoonful of apple cider vinegar or pickle juice. Pickle juice is another one for hydration.
Hydration.
Yeah.
Or cramping?
So apple cider vinegar for cramping. Yeah. So cramping is caused by the two things. Right. So within a cell itself, so that's a cell, you have a certain amount of salt and the rest is water. So if there's not enough salt in the cell and too much water, you'll cramp. Or if there's too much salt and not enough water because you're dehydrated, you'll cramp. Okay. Apple cider vinegar helps to restore the balance in the cell. So if you restore the balance, you don't cramp. Does that make sense? The biggest thing we did in West Australia during our 7 years was that when visiting teams came over, we would all share the same mess, basically the same dining hall. So at lunch and at tea, the players would come up